Welcome to What Happens Next, the show dedicated to exploring issues, particularly for people in their 50s, 60s and beyond, when they're navigating change in their life. And one of the biggest ways that a lot of people struggle with navigating change is when we have separation from a partner or divorce. And in this interview today, I interview the brilliant Joanna Toch, who talks about the work she does at the Family Law Cafe and why it's different to the work that's typically done when you go and see a solicitor or a barrister. But also, Joanna shares some brilliant tips, including the importance of maintaining perspective and keeping calm when you go through a separation or divorce, why getting good advice early is vital, and why planning and having a well-informed general plan is really, really important. We also deep dive into the legal support that you can get through that journey. I hope you enjoy the interview with Joanna. I will see you on the other side. Welcome to What Happens Next, the podcast YouTube interview show where we interview guests who are designed to help you make transitions in your life. And normally those transitions are about having some choices in your 50s and 60s, thinking about what's next, and then planning for that next chapter. However, my experience of working with clients for over 20 years is sometimes these transitions are tough because they involve the separation of families and divorce, which inevitably happens to a lot of us. So today I want to interview Joanna because I want to explore some of those issues and think about how we best plan, prepare and transition into the next chapter of our lives when we're thinking about these issues and challenges, and how we cope with that major challenge and change when it happens. Joanna, how are you?
I'm really well. How are you, Chris? Nice to see you today.
I'm really good. And before we start talking about family law and how you help your clients, we were talking a little bit about the Edinburgh Fringe. How have you been going up? Because I've got a tour of the UK coming up in my with my daughter and my wife in a camper van, but that I'm really looking forward to. But you mentioned you've been to the Fringe a few times.
I think I first went when I was 18 and zoomed up there with someone who had a press pass, and we saw, I don't know, maybe 15 plays in 3 days or something crazy. Yeah. And we went to things where, there were 3 people and that kind of thing, and other things which were really popular and packed out. And I remember getting there and seeing everyone, like, their eyes looked really weird. And then after I was up there for a while, I realised, because you just have that cultural overload. So I completely love the Edinburgh Festival, and I particularly like seeing things which are original and people themselves.
You know what? I like the combination of the fact you can go to a show and the audience will be 5 people in a pub.
Yeah.
In the bottom of a pub, and then you go to a theatre with thousands for a headline act, and I just like the combination of the both. But yeah. I think the weirdest experience I had, we went to a show up there once where there was more people on the stage than in the audience.
Wow.
Which happens, right?
Somewhere, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. Funny enough, I've got a friend who runs a business, and decided that one of his aspirations and one of the things that he wanted to do to get out of his comfort zone is to start doing stand-up. And he did a course, learned how to do it, and then his first Edinburgh Fringe as a performer is this year. So that's quite a brave thing to do. And an amazing challenge, and one I'm thinking that might be one for the future, actually.
Oh, go on, Chris. I suspect you're starting this as a run through. You're touring England and then thinking in your mind, I can do the camper van tour of England, and I pop-up venues all around the country.
That might be a move, mightn't it? Yeah. That might be a move. There's always an idea there somewhere, Joanna. So before we talk about my pop-up tour of the UK, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, I'm a family law barrister, and I became a barrister about, when I was 28, a long time ago, you can do the maths, but at least 35 years ago. And I did crime initially, and then after about 4 or 5 years, I started doing family work as well. And so I have done family work since 1992. And also trained as a mediator. I worked in the solicitor's offices. And so I've set up a law platform, which is called Family Law Cafe, where you can get everything all in one place and using, new technology. So you have your online case space. So the plan is you come to us, and because I'm vastly experienced in family law, then I help you get a strategy in place, get you the right solicitors, barristers, mediators, really whatever you need, or none of those things if you want to do it just by discussion. So it's a new concept.
I love that. And how did you get into law originally?
Well, I think going back to this whole Edinburgh Festival, my mother sent me. Well, in fact, I had an advert when I was age 3. She put me out to work as a child model. So I was doing, I was on TV, with my own advert for orange juice when I was 3. And then I did child modeling. I went to stage school, and I wasn't really interested in being an actress. I did sort of little bits in movies, but I was really good at English. And so I liked the idea of writing my own scripts and doing my own thing. I at university.
There is an element of law that is quite theatrical, right? You've got the court is your stage potentially. I don't know. What do you think?
Absolutely, because as a barrister, you are acting for your client, yes. So you are taking instructions, you're putting their case forward. And what I really liked about it seemed like the supercharged version of being stand-up. In fact, my old head of chambers was a stand-up comedian before he went into criminal law. So there is this crossover. I wanted to do something which changed things and use that ability to get up on stage and perform. So I do think being a barrister is, it's super cool. I really enjoy it.
No, I get it. I completely get it. And actually, and I think is a value that we both, when we've spoken before and when you've been to Inner Circle and attended our events, one of the things that I think really aligns us is that desire to want to have a positive impact and make positive change, which the law can do, right?
The law can do. I think it's really interesting at the moment that clearly the law's vastly important, but I do think in the age of populism, you've got a lot of, you have politicians driven by people's desires to change things and perhaps trammel through the rule of law.
There's cynicism about the systems, isn't there, often, when it
comes. I mean, I think we're in an interesting age. When I started in law, to be a barrister, to argue law, you were, you had some tram lines. Whereas I feel now, when people are all giving their opinion, particularly in family law, it's really contentious, the different concepts of family law. It's a really complex area where you've got lots of pressure groups and activists, and then you have judges, holding the line and refereeing, and you've got quite a delayed system. So there's not very good bureaucratic support. So it's an interesting area. So I feel I started as a lawyer, but there is an element in me that wants to make change as well. And I think that is quite modern.
It's such an interesting balance, isn't it? I mean, funny enough, a couple of weeks ago, I went on as a tourist, went on a tour of Middle Temple. So we ate in the barristers' halls and went to Temple Church in the middle of Temple, and the history of just that part of London is incredible, isn't it? You don't realise that hundreds of years, potentially thousands of years, you've got that history there. And I suppose there's an element of law that is very archaic and traditional, And it sounds like the Family Law Cafe, you're looking to modernise that a bit. Tell me about that journey.
So the law is very slow to change. And I believe as barristers, we are innovators in lots of ways, because you're talking about Middle Temple, that is my inn. Our barristers have been there since, the 13th century.
Yeah.
And, you used to do 7 years of training, and solicitors would then come and they would assist and prepare things. But the barristers were really leading the way the law developed. And of course, you've got precedent, you've got case law. So you have law that's made by Parliament, but also laws also made by the cases. So you're at the forefront. But I feel that we got a little bit stale with everything. We'd still have public funding or legal aid, and that system doesn't work very well. I don't think it's fit for purpose. So in family law, it seems to me there's a lot of people that are caught in the middle. They don't qualify for public funding, and they don't have the funds to pay the quite high fees that barristers and solicitors are charging. And so I felt there was a new way, our phrase is there is another way of saying, look, you can pay monthly, you can pay up front, we will work out what you need, we won't waste your time and money, and we'll get you to the outcome you want. Because a lot of people, especially in family law, can really get sucked into spending a lot of money and not achieving much.
And I'd imagine there's a fear about that, isn't there? That fear of turning around and going, well, actually, should I settle for a quick resolution? Because I'm actually concerned that the legal fees are going to eat up a lot of what I'm going to get anyway.
Yes, and I think we as lawyers should take responsibility for the fact that, we charge a lot, we have an antiquated system, we haven't modernised, and I think we need to modernise. We do need to modernise. And so most of the information I put out is educational. It's telling people this is what happens in court, because obviously I've been there for 30 odd years in court, finding out what happens. And most people are very fearful of the money they're going to spend. The system is not best suited, and I want to change that. I want people to understand what is achievable, what isn't, be realistic. I think sometimes they can have an unrealistic expectation of what they can achieve. I want them to know from the beginning and then work out what they can afford. And what really concerns me is that there is a move towards people saying we don't need lawyers at all. That is, it's just like saying, let's sort out my plumbing. And to an extent, you can do that. I just know that if I sorted out the plumbing in my flat, it wouldn't be a good idea. And it would be slow, expensive. I'd probably have, leaks, and it would be a disaster. So I think we as lawyers, we need to be approachable, and we need to be realistic about our fees. So I'm trying to get more people to use lawyers and get lawyers to be reasonable about their fees. It's quite tricky, but that's what I'm trying to do.
But you're right. I mean, that element of, well, actually, I'll do it myself might work for some people, but actually the challenge of a way you've got is if you're doing it for, and it's unlikely that people are going through that family law journey or divorce journey too many times in their lives. They just haven't got the expertise that somebody like you would have, that you've done this hundreds of times, right?
So it's basically a full sale, and I'm just saying I do it in every day. Again, that comparing it to once I had something in my flat, there was like some dampness in the wall. I was just worried, and then this guy came and I was like, oh yeah, it's just this, and did it. I worried all that time. All it was a bit of lead he needed to put to stop it leaking.
I want to explore the Family Law Cafe, but the bit I'm always curious about, and I was, when I was doing my tour of the temple a couple of weeks ago, I was asking loads of questions about this. How was your, and funny enough, I've got a friend whose daughter is currently going through pupillage, like training to be a barrister, and coming up to the end of the year. And my understanding is that you get to the end of the year at the pupillage, and it's quite a nervous time. So how is that for you? Because the chambers can decide, yes, we want you, or is that right? How does that work? And how was that experience for you?
It's really interesting because it hasn't changed much. And I used to teach at bar school, and I was the pupillage advisor, which was slightly soul destroying. Because when I started at bar school, and I'm sure it's similar now, they would say at the beginning, well, only one in 11 of you will become a practicing barrister. Those are the odds. And you're already at bar school training to be a barrister. You finish your law degree, then you went to bar school to train for a year to become a barrister, and then you do a year's pupillage. So chambers can take on pupils. I think it's got worse now because they pay them. When I did it, I didn't get paid. I got £500 as an award, and that was it. And I can understand why they are paid now. Of course, I understand that. What it means is they can take on, say, 4 pupils, but then at the end of that year, they may take on one as a tenant. So there's a big wastage, and that's shocking to me. And again, I'm trying to, when people come to Family Law Cafe, often what's affordable is the junior end of the bar with reasonable prices. And so I'm trying to make more work for that end of the bar, which is not legally aided. These are, highly capable people, very well educated, very bright, and so, using a junior barrister is a really good call, and it's not going to cost you what it's going to cost to have a senior barrister.
And it might be right for your case. So tell me a little bit about the process. Somebody's going through a separation or wants to get some advice about what that might involve. What's the steps that they take to get involved with the Family Law Cafe? How does that work practically?
Well, they just contact us by email, through our website, or by social media. We're not on all the main platforms, or call in and just say, look, this is my problem. We'll probably ask a few questions. So if they're already in litigation, probably ask for the most recent court order. If they're not in litigation, where are you now? Where do you hope to get to? And we will have an initial call, and there's no cost or charge for that. It's got to be a good fit. And they will say, well, this is where I am. These are the issues. And we'll work out where they want to get to. And then we will put to them, well, look, we think the way forward is this. This is probably a good idea to think about. It might be mediation. It might be straight to court. It might be arbitration. It might be getting a solicitor in. It might be getting a barrister in. It might be just discussing it with the other party. And so because we have an overview, we'll give an overview and say, this is what we think. And we charge a monthly fee at a budget. We look at their budget. What can you afford? We charge a monthly fee that will work for them, or an all-in fee, because let's say there's a hearing in 1 month, then certain things need to be done. And the fee will be higher in the first month, because obviously you do a lot more in the first month, and then we just set it down for a monthly fee, and then they pay an uplift when something special needs to be done, for example, when they've got a court hearing. I'm just trying to allow people to have control over what they're doing and to be informed. I've got no interest in, a lot of lawyers, I think, make things seem more complicated. I'm trying to make things simpler for people.
Simplify. Yeah. I love that. And talk to me a little bit about the technology that comes with that, because when I had a look on the Family Law website, so you've got for want of a better phrase, and you've probably got a better one, a case tracking software that allows people to just understand where they are in the journey. Is that right?
Yeah, we call it the case space. And so what that means is that it's very simple. I said when I got it built, I wanted it as simple as Facebook. So people go on there, they can upload their documents, they can ask all the questions they want. We reply on the case space. And we have meetings online. All of their documents are kept there. You can search for your documents. It means we can respond incredibly quickly. It means that people aren't left anxious and worried. And if something comes in from, say, there's a solicitor on the other side, you can just email that in and it pops up on the case space. Everything you've got is there. And I just remember doing a case for a woman. I did about 3 years of this case, and she invited me to her home. I went to cook a meal or something like that. And when it was over, and she had a whole room which is full of papers. And I just thought, no one should live like this. Yeah. Nobody should live like this. You should just have it online. You don't have to print anything at all, ever. And we did this before the courts started using online. So, the courts are catching up now.
I wonder how much, that element of just having all that paperwork. It's just that it feels like that process could really take up space in your life.
Yeah.
And you look around your house and you're reminded of it every day because of that paperwork.
Yes. Yes.
It's an interesting emotional thing, that.
And people get lost in the system, don't they? And they get it's like one party is sometimes using litigation against the other to oppress them. People have to understand that the courts really just want to just do their job, simply get in, get out. They're not there to run your life. And people, have phoned in and, something's happening. And I'm just like, okay, well, just stay calm. Don't worry. Take a breath. But people get to the stage where they feel they have to check everything with their lawyer. No one should be made to live like that. They should just send that letter in. We can say, okay, that's important, reply, or don't worry about that one. It's just a bit of bullying often. And then just get on with your life. You don't have to live your case.
Yeah, and that's it's really interesting from a financial planner's perspective. The amount of conversations I have with clients saying, this money is a tool to allow you to live your life. So if you're not living your life, we need to think about that as opposed to, having you worrying about markets or getting you an extra 2%. Let's talk about the life you want to lead using money as a tool and get out of the way of the rest. Do you know what I mean? I
completely agree and understand that. And that's the same thing. Use the litigation as a tool to get you where you want to go. And then sometimes people don't realise that they are in a good place. And sometimes I have to say to people, actually, this is fine. You've got quite a lot of cards in your hand. People can just not see the positives in their situation.
You only know what you know, right? That's the thing. You've had the experience of going through this journey like hundreds of times, and they're first, maybe second time that they've ever done it.
Yeah.
So in terms of just the sort of setup at Family Law Cafe, Joanna, I just want to clarify one thing. Because I know that you've got a team of barristers and a team of lawyers who work on your behalf and on the behalf of the clients. Would you liaise with them and then communicate with the client? How does it work in terms? Are you the organisation responsible for making sure that the solicitors and the barristers are doing the work? How does it work?
Okay, so I think this is something that people sometimes find it difficult to grasp in the abstract, but when they come into Family Law Cafe, they get it instantly. And that's why, look at our Trustpilot reviews, people say they get it. So what it means is you come to Family Law Cafe, we strategize your case, we get you what you need. And that means working with different barristers who are in practice, that they're not employed by us, they're third parties, but they work with us regularly, and solicitors who work with us regularly, and mediators that work with us regularly. So I'm not giving people a list of names. I'm helping them understand their own case and helping them make decisions. So I'll give them the choice of barristers. Say, well, look, this one, because I know myself, there's some things that I'm just great at, some things I'm average at. It's different barristers are good for different cases, different solicitors are good for different cases. You get ones that are very practical, you get ones that are very, let's say, robust. So getting the right team for you is what we're trying to do. We don't, and we look after the whole case. We're not referring it, we're not sending it off. They come onto the case space and they meet you there in your place. You're in charge. We flipped it. There's too much in law. I think that over the years, barristers, solicitors have become, because it is competitive to become a barrister or solicitor, you have to work really hard, but we forget we're working for we call them customers, we don't call them clients. And that may sound like we're kind of, we're not being respectful, but I think clients has that feeling that somehow we're in charge, but the reality is the customer's paying. The customer's in charge, and we're offering a service for them. And I think we always need to remember that.
I 100% agree. I'm with you on that. And I think what we underestimate often is how difficult it is to go through this journey for people, right? It's such an emotional thing. what are the things that when your customers have come in to speak to you and are in this place where they're going, that, you know, this is a tough part of my life, what are the ways that you think, I think you've highlighted one, which is let's keep calm and just and make sure. But what are the other things you recommend people do to just make sure that they put the decisions they need to make about this next chapter into the right perspective?
Well, I'm going to pick up that word, that phrase, the right perspective, because it is always about perspective, isn't it? And so the first thing is to stand back and understand not only the facts, but how they're feeling and what their aims are, you know. And the point about family law is every situation is different. It's really fact specific. So we can put lots of educational material out there and say, look, these are the Section 25 factors that a judge is going to look at in a finances case. These are the principles. And then people say, oh, yeah, but in my case, that's a bit different. And then if you've done this for a long time, you'll realise when they talk to you, okay, well, I don't know, you've got a child with special needs. That is going to be the magnetic factor. That's going to be the main thing. That's going to mean the housing needs are greater priority, for example. So getting the right perspective and not panicking, as you've mentioned, you know, it's okay. You know, it's not all going to happen. Everything moves slowly. So you've got, in some ways, that could be a bad thing, but it also can be an advantage. That, okay, let's just take a breath and make a plan. And when things, sometimes, you know, you might have a hearing that doesn't go your way, but you've got to think, okay, well, in the long run, you know, we still keep positive and this is what we're looking for, making early offers, understanding things. And because you're emotionally involved, sometimes you can just lose that perspective. And so another thing I find is that people might see a lawyer, things might be said, and then they forget it because they're so embroiled in their own thoughts. So that's why I like to use a case base and say to people, look, we don't do a one-off meeting, we do a monthly fees. So, you know,
so we're around if you need it, right?
Sorry?
So you're around if they need a conversation like that.
Yeah, so, you know, when they don't understand, you know, no question is a silly question, is it? Yeah. You know, it's like just raise something, we'll explain it. Sometimes people misunderstand things. You know, sometimes I went in, had a, you know, initial meeting with someone who said, look, there's not going to be no cost here. I said, no, actually this area, there will be a cost order one way or the other. And it is really important you know that at the beginning.
It's so interesting because when I think about, because we don't do at Savello, we don't do transactional work anymore, and there's a part of the reason we decided not to do transactional work is because what we realised is, number one, a lot of what we spend our time doing is being around to answer any questions that clients have got to keep them on the right track, and that might be. I mean, I had a really interesting conversation with a client a couple of months ago when Donald Trump was putting tariffs on everything and it impacted the market. And he said to me, Chris, he sent me a text message, Chris, I know what you're going to say to me. I know we're looking at longer term and you're going to tell me to maintain a degree of medium to long-term perspective, but do I need to worry about the orange man? and number one, it made me laugh. So I phoned this particular client and said, no, because actually we know that markets are robust. Part of the issue we've got when we're thinking about what happens next in our lives is having the self-awareness, having the introspection to be able to think about what the gaps in our well-being are. And we're doing loads of work at the minute with what happens next to build solutions that are going to help you think about well-being in a nuanced way when you're thinking about how it applies to your life. One of the first things we've built that you can use today is our What Happens Next quiz. It's free to do, takes about 5 minutes, but what it will do is give you an insight into the areas of strengths when it comes to your well-being and the areas you might want to improve. You can take the What Happens Next quiz at whathappensnext.life/quiz. And I hope it helps you in your journey to work out what happens next for you. Over the medium to long term, even though short term we had some ups and downs, over the medium to long term, we're going to be okay. And his answer, Joanna, was all good. I feel better now. I've had a conversation. I think we underestimate that degree of reassurance and the part it plays in helping clients. And that's why for about 7 or 8 years now, and we've been around 15, we stopped doing transactional work. Because my experience is that actually being that voice of reassurance means that clients are more likely to achieve their financial plan because they don't make those knee-jerk and often detrimental to the medium to long-term plan mistakes that you can make without that ongoing support. It's really, really interesting. So
can I just pick you up on that, though? Because I can't let that pass. Because that's the point. I don't want to be transactional. I want to have a relationship. 100%. We have a relationship with our customers where we want them happy at the end. You know, that's really all we're about, to make sure that they get what they want. Or, you know, most people are reasonable. They're not out there, certainly the ones that we work with, they're not out there to destroy other people. They just want a reasonable position. And, that's why I don't do every email is this amount, every letter is this amount. It's just a monthly fee. And, you know, people can work it out in their heads. So what we're charging would be the equivalent of, say, 2 hours with a solicitor or, you know, 3 hours in a month. And, you know, it's all included, every message. And I'm just trying to keep the system easy, so it's all on the case space, so all of their questions are up there. It's a quick answer, and it's just, as you said, just reassurance.
It's
did he reassured him he was fine,
and also it's reassurance without turning around and going, I'm going to get a bill now that's going to mean that, you know what I mean, it's that
you should never have to pay a bill. And sometimes people are paying bills because they're chasing their solicitor to say, have you done a letter? Have you done it? And then at the end of the month, they're suddenly, I was billed.
And it's cost me.
Madness.
It seems mad. So number one was maintain perspective is really important. Number two is keep calm. What do you reckon your third thing is in terms of better negotiating that journey of a breakup?
Have a general plan, having a well-informed plan, isn't it? Like anything in life, you know, don't have a kind of crazy plan. Like, I'm going to get, you know, 90% of the equity of the house. I mean, it's unlikely to happen. Or I want this, I want that. Have a well-informed general plan and be prepared to, and just work towards it and work with people that know what they're doing. Don't work with experts, use experts. Why wouldn't you? I mean, as I say, I think it's a disaster that people are deciding, I'd be better off without a lawyer. I mean, that's just wrong on so many levels. I'm going to do better without a lawyer. That's just not going to happen. I've seen people representing themselves in court, and it's, even though the judges are trying to help them, sometimes I think people think, I'm going to try and do something, you know, that's really going to help me. I'm going to hand in this document, not give it to the other side. That's going to really help me. And everyone just looks and says, okay. And the judge will give then the document to the lawyer. You know, you could don't do things without a lawyer.
I'd imagine that non-disclosure then damages your case, right?
Well, exactly, that's what I mean. So people go into, they might then, without meaning to, put in, I mean, this is an example of something that was in the court the other day. We had a lovely lady who's been with us about 1.5 years, and we've had solicitor writing to the man. We had to issue proceedings in the end. And he just turned up on the day at the hearing. And I think if he could have heard himself talk I think he thought he was being clever. And of course, it just didn't end well, that hearing. And he's not doing the right thing by not making disclosure. Maybe he has a valid reason, but he's not helping himself.
Yeah, 100%, completely get it. When people are going through that journey of separation or divorce, what elements do they often underestimate or underprepare for, do you think?
It's a little bit front-loaded. You know, when you're going through if you're going through a separation of divorce, I'd say the best thing you could do is get good advice early and take all the actions you need to do. And usually you'll find that one party is ahead of the other. They've been thinking about it, they've been planning it, they haven't taken steps, they are more ready, when they do. And you can have a party that's just blindsided, emotionally distraught, and no matter how hard it is, just invest in a little bit of advice at the beginning. The earlier you do things, like anything in life, isn't it? Is if I know you didn't go to the dentist, the longer you leave it, the worse it's going to be. Yeah.
I suppose the big thing there is, as you say, there's normally an instigator of these proceedings, and the other side might be on the back foot in terms of knowing where they stand, because even though they might have an indication, they didn't realise. I mean, how does that? I mean, I can't pretend I know anything about this, but how does that dynamic typically work when people are coming through the doors? How is it? At what point do they normally come through? Is it when somebody's giving them divorce proceedings, or how does that dynamic typically work?
Yeah, I mean, people come to us in all situations. And so it can often be the case, I suppose, all these examples are kind of bad things, unfortunately. But let's say, someone close to you is unwell, or you're unwell yourself. You tend to ignore these things. I just wonder, in marriages, people are like, no, it'll be okay. And they tend to kid themselves, everything's okay. And they can be totally blindsided, as I've said, by the other partner saying that, I'm leaving, I'm taking the children, I'm off. And what if a party then goes into court and the court makes a decision, then early decisions can have a big impact. And so you might then we might have someone come to us and they've already got a court order against them, or there's a non-molestation order or something like that. And so we then have to try and turn things around and give advice, and that person can really be in a mess. And I will say often men are less aware of separation, divorce problems. It is women who mostly initiate the ending of a relationship. And so men might not be seeing their children. They might be subject to orders about behaviour. They might be completely confused. So, we need to help with self-awareness and can do. And, if you have done something wrong, it is better to admit it. It's better to be straightforward. Playing things straight is usually the best way.
Yeah, it's just playing straight back is the route forward. One thing I'd really like to understand is because you're working in an environment which is by its nature emotional, because separation and relationships are emotional, but actually you've got to also live in that environment where facts count and facts matter. When you're weighing up and when a judge is weighing up the emotional concerns and the factual concerns, is it skewed towards the facts? Or is there how do the emotions play a part? Help me understand a bit about that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the sort of thing we were discussing at the beginning, how the world has changed a lot. Now, judges are still going to decide things based on the facts and what is proved. But we are living in a post-truth world in many respects, aren't we? Where people could fabricate evidence, they can have a perspective where they believe something is true. I mean, when we have welfare reports by the CAFCAS officers and the Child and Families Support and Advisory Service, when they do a report, they will talk about people's perspectives and people's narratives, because people, it has been said, there's her truth, his truth, and the truth, isn't there? And if you do end up going into a court and a judge is deciding things, people can be really shocked that their truth is not considered to be the truth.
That's the story they've told themselves about the world, right? And that may not be the reality.
Well, it's that's why if you can compromise, sometimes you won't get everything you want, but you have to understand, if you do go into court, there can be a finding which is not helpful long term.
Yeah. And where does mediation play part in that journey? And is it right for some people to consider mediation before they go down that sort of court and legal route? What do you think about that?
Well, it's less what I think, it's what the court's actually saying, what the rules are saying. You have to consider mediation. So if you don't consider it, you can't even go to court. You'd have to
get sent back to mediate.
Yeah, and if you don't, it's really that they talk about non-court dispute resolution, which we want to promote at Family Law Cafe because it gives everyone much more control. So you can, for example, use arbitration. We've got a big matter now, which is going to arbitration. We're really happy about that because there's a level of control that, you know when the hearing is going to be, you know what issues are going to be dealt with. And the person who is arbitrating, which is different to mediators. Mediation is when the mediator helps you discuss and decide it yourself. Arbitration is a form of non-court dispute resolution where you actually put the case to someone who's like a retired judge and they will decide it. So mediation's absolutely central in family law.
So now we understand a little bit about the arbitration element. I get the mediation bit, that's somebody who's literally mediating a conversation between the two parties to come to some sort of middle ground. Arbitration is a judgment, but not by a judge in court. Is that legally binding at that point, Joe?
It is, yeah. And just to say, with mediation, at Family Law Cafe, we give, I think what's worth remembering is not all mediators, firstly, mediators can't tell you what to do. So you do need to have a lawyer supporting you through mediation. So we offer a mediation package where we support people through mediation. That can save you huge amounts of money because you can get to your outcome by consent. So mediation is really, really important. Arbitration is when the parties decide to go to an arbitrator who is qualified to decide it. And often these people are barristers, solicitors, retired judges. Yeah. And that arbitration award will be binding because then it will go to the court and the court will endorse it. You can appeal it, but it is a way, it's really private legal system, and you would pay for the arbitrator. So it can be more expensive in that way, but it can be much less expensive because you're getting that arbitration within a timescale that's right for you.
Yeah. And I suppose, you know what I love is the fact that you talk on the website about you getting to the optimistic end. And I suppose arbitration might be reducing the time you're in that messy middle and therefore reducing a bit of the pain, right?
Yeah.
But what does an optimistic end look like? And talk to me a little bit about how that looks for your clients, because I love that phrase, by the way.
Good.
The optimistic end is always that it feels really painful now, but it's going to be there is a better life on the horizon, right? Is that, help me understand where that phrase came from and what it practically means for your clients.
I think it comes from this, that as a barrister, I've been practicing family law since 1992, right? So that means I've done cases that might take many years, have seemed very terrible at the time. I've also had people who contact me on social media and say, thank you for what you did for my family, thank you for this and that, and people that contact me send me gifts and thank yous, which is a lovely thing. And I also see how law, the Children Act's been enforced during all of that time. Children Act 1989. It is a good piece of legislation. It's quite basic, and I think when people get confused, go back to Children Act. It's all there. So I've seen different fashions come in and out. And the fact is, 2 in 3 marriages will end in divorce. Separations, people that live together, it's higher. So, and I don't see that as a negative. I see it as people live a long time. We are highly sophisticated people, we have big brains, we have things we want to do. It is absolutely fantastic if you find your life partner and it all works, and that's incredible. But for many people, they're on, second marriages at work. So there is a future there. There is a way forward. it's painful, it's confusing, it's an emotionally very difficult, and children can be involved and can be affected. But research shows that children that grow up with two happy parents, and that may be when they're separated, their life outcomes are just as good as when parents stay together. The worst thing you can do is stay together, research shows, and bring the children up in confusion and conflict. So there is a good end. I used to, just do, you used to, divorce petitions used to be pleadings. It's a no-fault system now, so that's very simple. But it used to be that you have to say why you're getting divorced.
Didn't you, really?
And I would do divorce petitions as pleadings and put, the 5 reasons. And when I did them, I used to actually have a sense of, okay, we're moving this forward now. I didn't do it in a negative way. And I think that we could all turn bad things to good by being positive. I'm not interested in making things worse for people. I'm only interested in making things better.
And I look at some of my friends who have gone through that. Yeah, I mean, I'm Gazzy and I have been married coming up 20 years now. And I mean, we had this conversation the other day about how we've both changed and evolved in different ways, but thankfully kept the lines of communication open so that as we go through that journey, and no relationship's perfect, right? We have falling outs, but managed to, at the minute, work our way through it successfully. I've also got friends who've gone through that divorce journey who, at the time, they said how painful it was, but now they've found, as you say, their life partner and people they like. So that wouldn't have happened if they would have stayed in those potentially unhelpful relationships before. So it's that element of, like, as you say, there's always a future on the other side, right?
Of course there is. Of course there is. And life is complex. It would be lovely, wouldn't it, if we were lucky enough, to, well, we all evolve, as you say, we all change. And
life is complex, and that's what makes it both painful and interesting and fun.
Of course. And, if you're going to separate, if you're going to divorce, do it in the best way possible, do it in the most healthy way possible, whatever's right for you. And sometimes, if you go wrong, stop, get some self-awareness and try and do better. We're all trying to do better every day, aren't we? Hopefully.
Now, I'm going to give you a magic wand now, Joanna, because I know you've been in law a long time.
Yeah.
And I know that there's an element of you that loves the law and respects the law, but there's also an element where you go, this could be a bit better, couldn't it? So with this magic wand, you're allowed to change whatever you want about family law. What would you do with that magic wand? You've got 3 wishes, right? 3 wishes. I've changed it. It's not a magic wand anymore. You're
Aladdin. I'm Aladdin. Who is it? You're the genie. You're the genie. So my 3 wishes. Firstly, the government gets a really good administrator to be in charge of the entire family law system, the admin.
Yeah.
And they are centralised, okay? Then they set up one office to deal with all of the courts.
Yeah. So how does that work at the minute? Is that decentralised and that creates...
Yeah, you have resident judges for every area. How crazy and old-fashioned is that? It's just rubbish. I literally want... just blow up the admin, because it's honestly shockingly bad. And then don't go for the cheapest, right? Have people deciding. You need to have a cadre of good administrators, and there are lots of people that are working in them, but they need leadership. So you need to have a fantastic leader. It doesn't have to be a judge. It needs to be a really good bureaucrat, I think, someone that's going to make change and say, we're now going to run this family law system in a cost-effective way, right? We get a ton of money in from divorces. Doesn't cost us like £600, does it? They're making profit out of divorce. Just remember that, yeah? We're profiting from people's divorces. So let's now use that, and then I would like someone to use that money properly to run the system properly.
It's so interesting, isn't it? That, like, as a business owner,
is that one wish?
I always look at local authority, government, and go, oh, I do wonder whether there's any actual insight in terms of if they ran that. My head always goes to if they ran that particular organisation, whatever it may be, as a business, how successful would it be? And I know there's differences, right? And I know you can't run some of these organisations as a business, but having a look at how efficient it is step one.
That's not what. So that's like you've got to have a big, someone come in from private sector to run.
Yeah, so that's number one.
Because it's we think that NHS is bad. Like anyone that steps into legal system is, it's on its knees. It does not run properly. Number two, let's now get a hold of the Legal Services Commission, blow them up, bring in someone privately too.
There's a lot of explosions going on at the minute.
I don't see, it's like, blowing up a big building, isn't it? Sometimes it's so bad, unless you blow it up and you rebuild.
Well, I mean,
you can't tinker with it. It's so bad.
The challenge you've got is with a lot of these big, public sector bodies, what does tinkering do? I mean, it's it doesn't change the fundamental issues of the organisation, does it?
So you make a rule: if one person gets funding, the other person gets the equal amount, right?
Yeah, I like that.
That's so you can't have a situation where one person is bankrolled by the state and the other one isn't, because the children have two parents, and for a judge to do their job properly, then there should be equality. So that's my second wish. So
and what are you blowing up number three?
Number three, actually, it's quite a simple one that I've heard judges say. When people are going through financial remedy, get rid of this legal services order, this which is trying to get money from the other side. Look at the overall assets of the parties. Just have an initial hearing. They can each have a lawyer for free, initial case manager here before a judge, get them to say what their overall assets are, and just make sure that the party without any money gets a lump sum to use in an appropriate lump sum. So just because someone's been sat at home, let's say it's a husband, been a home husband, and the wife's a director of finance somewhere and she's only 200k a year. He's got no money at all. How can it be right that he doesn't ever have any money to start his case? So just get rid of, there's something called the legal services order, and it's some kind of humiliating thing where you have to go and ask, you have to be refused by two lenders, and then you have to find litigation funding, and you have to, so give people a basic funding so that they can be equal in the early stages.
Yeah, you know what I love about those three? A lot of them are about removal of unnecessary bureaucracy and fairness, which is I love that. Absolutely love that. So thinking about people in their 50s and 60s, which is our primary audience of people who watch our videos and what happens next, thinking about separation and breakup, and thinking about how the next stage of their lives can be as successful as they can, how do we make sure that people who are going through separation and divorce make that next stage as successful as possible?
Okay, it's a very common time to go through separation and divorce. Yeah. People might not realise it, but it really is.
The kids are growing up, right?
Kids are growing up. Yeah, there's all sorts of reasons for it. I think because people are, they've been married, they've raised children together. Sometimes people have been unhappy, but they felt, no, I'm going to stay. It's a very common time to separate. It's also a really scary time to separate because you may not want to separate, and you may realise I'm never going to be able to make this money. So you have a pension sharing order, and there's a cap on pension sharing order. And how unfair is this? Someone could have got to their limit and then they're going to lose half their pension probably. So it's a very scary time.
But I think the time when their working life is coming to an end, or where they've decided they actually want to change what they do. And it's an interesting dynamic, that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's really unfair because they may not have had any idea that they were going to lose their pension. And then that may be the man, for example. And then women may be, it can feel so unfair. Let's say a man, decides to end the marriage and then finds another woman, and she's younger, and then all of the life plans of their retirement, everything, all the dreams have just been taken away. And that's not uncommon. So I would say just get early advice, look around for an advisor that suits you. Don't just rush. Take your time, speak to different solicitors. You can obviously come and speak to us, speak to different, that you can find the information on the internet, and there's lots of groups, and there will be people that but don't just choose the first person, because I suppose it's like working with a therapist. It's got to be the one that's right for you.
Finding the right fit. Yeah.
And really take stock. And I think it was what we were saying before, just take a breath, don't rush. Things do in the end move slowly. You don't have to panic. Get as much support as you can. A lot of people that come to me, I say, look, what support do you have in place? And people don't want to admit that they're not strong. This is a very challenging time. So, and it's time, maybe if you have got a bit of a nest egg, invest in yourself, because you're investing in your future. And so if it's right for you, have a counsellor. There's lots of, or there's lots of charities that can support you. So look after yourself mentally and physically. It may be the time to, make sure you just look after yourself, reach out to friends, don't isolate yourself. So get the best advice, look after yourself, take your time, and then make choices that are right for you. And it is a chance to reevaluate your life. And people do live longer now. So you may have another 30 years. And, these decisions are important. So don't rush anything.
100%.
Your financial advisor, of course, that's all part of it.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, that because of the fact that people are living a lot longer now, there could be an actual exciting next chapter that's on the other side of, as you just say, the often pain and frustration of going through this journey. And I think it's important to remember that. Tell me a story that best encapsulates the work you do at Family Law Cafe.
Oh, don't know if it's what it's just sprung to mind, because I've got, a thank you card just here that
I love that.
A couple of days ago. And this, if I can, I'll read bits of it, and then I'll tell you about this. I just want to say a big thank you for everything you've done and are still doing to help me through this roller coaster of a divorce. I know we're not quite finished yet, but I already feel I owe you a medal, or at the very least a strong drink, emoji face. Your calm, clear advice, patience with my many questions, and sometimes a sense of humour have made this whole process so much more bearable and has helped me feel more grounded. I genuinely don't know how I would have managed without you steering the ship. It's made a huge difference now I have someone I can trust looking out for me. Thank you for being brilliant at what you do and all your hard work of making one of life's hardest transitions just a bit less awful. And there's a bit more.
I love that, Joanna. I really love that. How did you feel when you got it?
And so that story really, just in a nutshell, is, someone came to me, they were referred to me by a domestic abuse advisor, and they were really being abused in, they'd been abused in other ways, but this was financially. And we just stuck through it. We had to have a final hearing, and, went on, and it's been a very long process and extremely unpleasant. And so I'm, my main thing is I'm very determined, and if I do something, I'll do it, and sometimes you have to be determined for people and just say, it will be fine. It will be fine. Mm.
How did you feel when you got that card?
Just, Yeah, pick me up a bit, yeah. Because I mean, part of that, I think it was a case recently we reported on how a husband was trying to remove the legal team and the support. So what can happen is that there will be actions taken. I'm not even going to say what actions because I don't want to give anyone any ideas. But when people are very determined that their spouse won't get support, they will try and attack you in different ways and do things to, cause problems for you. And people have in my career tried to cause problems for me. And great, that's a great compliment. Thank you, because it means that I know what you're doing here. I see.
Yeah, you're on the right track, and they're trying to stop you. Yeah,
they're trying to stop me, and I won't be stopped. And that I'll just dig in harder. And as I say, I have people who reach out to me on social media, and one of them, his daughter, has now become a family law barrister, and she was a child during those proceedings, and the court was completely and utterly against him. And I went up for this case, and I just thought, he does, I don't know what the truth is. I'm just, as I say, acting for my client, for my customer. I'm there for them. I don't pretend that I know what the truth is. That's up to the judge to make a finding. Even the judge doesn't know what the real truth is. But, when people on the other side try to cause difficulties, I see you and I see what you're doing. I've done this long enough to say, and then to reassure people, look, it will come to nothing. Just keep going.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of my work in life is really non-contentious. Actually, I've designed it that way because we only take on clients that we can help, we can support, but I actually really like, and I think we've got a good long-term relationship with. And it always fascinates me when it comes to family law, because by its nature, not every case, but by its nature, it's going to get contentious every now and again. I think to do that sort of work, you need that determination and that strength of will and character to do it really well. So I'm glad you're doing it, so I haven't got to.
Well, but Chris, I want to let you know, for all that I say, oftentimes I'm saying to people, actually, kind of maybe see their side of things. Maybe they're not being unreasonable. So I will with my own client. And so it can work both ways. I won't want to go there. It's just I will dig my heels in.
You will if you have to.
They have been reasonable. Yeah.
You will, you have to.
Yeah. I get everything you do in family law, unfortunately, not everything, but a lot of things can be difficult. It's not an easy area, but I enjoy it.
As long as you love it, thank you for doing it. And then I will just focus on this lovely little world, optimistic world that I live in. Where can people find out about you and the work you do, Joanna?
Well, Family Law Cafe, it's easy to remember. You can just Google that. You'll come to our website, have a look around. There's plenty of resources on there. Or Family Law Cafe, just look on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever, all of the platforms.
All of the socials, brilliant.
Yeah, our phone number is easy. It's, 02039 040506. You can call us. You can email us, info@familylawcafe.co.uk. All those easy ways.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for being my guest today. I've loved that conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. It's such a pleasure.
So that was the interview with Joanna. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I know that I learned a lot from this interview, and hopefully I'll never need Joanna's services, but I know that this interview, if you're going through separation or divorce, will definitely help you. But I'd love to know what you think. Feel free to leave your comments below. Let us know what you think of the podcast in general, particularly in terms of who we can get on that might help you, but also the bits that you like and don't like. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you on the podcast then.